This podcast today is presented by Omria, your partner for global remote scanning. Guaranteed MRI uptime.
Our mission, I mentioned that earlier, is really state-shifting disease. So that's really thinking about how you can catch diseases earlier. And as well as how to drive productivity, given that there's such a massive shortage of staff, whether it's the radiologist, the technologist, you name it.
Yeah, that's
if
true.
you think about state-shifting disease, you mentioned let's call it the junior doctors who are uncertain about a fracture. I would rephrase that into how can you get generalists all the way up to specialist level. And we've seen with our studies that we've published that actually that's what AI can do.
MedMile Uncut, der Podcast über das Gesundheitswesen. Hier gibt es Meinungen und Persönlichkeiten, ungeschnitten.
Hello and welcome to the podcast MedMile Uncut, the podcast by MedMile. My name is Florian Forsting and I'm the host. Today we are in Amsterdam, and not just in Amsterdam, we are also doing this podcast in English. So this is the first time we're doing this MedMile Uncut podcast in English. But I think it's really worth it. It's a really good occasion actually. As I said, we're here in Amsterdam with Dr. Kees Wesdorp. He's not a physician, he's not a doctor. He's the president and CEO of DeepHealth, a company by RadNet. It's a pleasure to be here, Kees, and great that you're having me here.
Thank you, Florian. That's completely likewise.
So we talked a little bit before already, and the occasion actually, what is triggering this podcast is right before ECR, there was a big announcement in the press. Glima has been bought by DeepHealth, a RadNet company. So what happened on that day was a Monday. On Wednesday, the ECR started. Props to your marketing team, by the way. It's I think this was no coincidence. My phone started ringing quite often. And a lot of people were like, did you hear that Glima was bought? I was like, yeah, I did read it recently as well. And they're like, okay, and can you tell me, like probably 80% of those people asked, what is DeepHealth and what is actually RadNet? And then I was like explaining it a little bit because I knew a little bit about it. We knew a little bit before. And we ran into each other in Vienna, great city. And I was like, okay, good. This might be actually a cool story for all the listeners in Europe to understand what is DeepHealth and what is RadNet. So we're pleasure that we can do that so briefly after the ECR. Kees, a little bit to you before we jump into the DeepHealth story and the RadNet story. You are not a physician, you're not a doctor, but you do have a PhD in something really like different than medicine, right?
That's very true. It's a long time ago. So this was my PhD. I completed that in 2001 in the domain of cold anti-hydrogen. So experimental atomic physics, and we were trying to prove that the standard model of physics still survives the test of measuring antimatter.
Yeah, I listened. Actually, this is not your first podcast. I did a little research, and you did a podcast 4 years ago for your then former employee and company you worked for Philips. And you said back then you really loved academics and really did love the research, but you were missing a little bit of purpose, I think you said, right?
Yeah, so I would say that pushing the boundaries of science is actually very purposeful.
Yeah.
So I remember from those days that, I would wake up very inspired, thinking about the next experiment or the next formula to crack. And then when I went to industry, I was actually missing that in my life. And that's the beauty about healthcare and health tech and being so close to care provision that you wake up every day again, not just thinking about great technology, but more importantly, how to impact patients, health systems, and be the contributing factor to the great work that physicians and care professionals do.
Oh, that I fully agree there. Yeah, you really do have a great purpose in healthcare in general. It was though a long journey till you made it there, because I think you worked for 5 years, McKinsey, or 6 years.
It's 5 to 6 years intervals. So McKinsey, then in semiconductors. So that's more hardware technology for 5 years at NXP.
Okay.
Then joined a private equity fund, Bain Capital in Europe. And I moved my family over from the Netherlands to London. Yeah. We spoke briefly about that, Florian, the beautiful city, London. And from there got recruited to Philips, and that's where my journey really begun with health tech. Initially with diagnostic imaging equipment, so CT, MR, etc. And then over time also overseeing what informatics and AI could do to, for instance, the radiology workflow.
It was really funny listening to this podcast 2022. Like today I listened to it. And I thought so many points you mentioned back then are so true for today. And props to you. You had pretty good predictions there. You said in 2022, AI will like change everything basically. And that you really do think that there's a big vision and AI will provide a lot of healthcare, better healthcare for a lot of patients. This was basically the story back then. I do not know if you can still remember, because I'm sure you didn't listen to the podcast briefly, but I did. It's a long journey from the scientist over to McKinsey and private equity and then to Philips. You joined DeepHealth in October 2024, I think, right?
Correct. 18 months ago, roughly 1.5 years ago.
Yeah. Well, like, why did you choose to go to DeepHealth? I mean, they probably approached you and were like, "Okay, good, listen up. This is what we're doing, and you want to join our team and lead the team."
Well, I had the privilege to meet the RadNet team already in 2020.
Okay.
And that was maybe initially more from a commercial opportunity between Philips and RadNet. But I got really inspired by what RadNet does in the US for outpatient imaging.
Yeah.
In those conversations that initially we were talking about diagnostic imaging equipment, it became very clear that RadNet had a vision that technology, and in particular informatics and AI, could play a much bigger role in debottlenecking the radiology workflow and providing better care. And then I left Philips, and obviously those contacts remain over time.
I can imagine,
Exactly, and we started talking again somewhere in the summer of 2024. Okay. And I realized it's just a very exciting opportunity to go back into health tech, and then even more closer to care provision. For a company like RadNet, and so I didn't really have to think long about it.
Oh, I can imagine. Like, I think we could speak even longer about your personal career, because it's really, really inspiring. I do think. You also have 4 children, if I remember correctly. Yeah. You live right at the sea here, so you do a lot of sports. But the story behind DeepHealth and RadNet is just so interesting. So I would suggest we should move forward and speak a little bit about that.
You don't want me to talk about my dogs?
Oh, you do have dogs? How many do you have?
Yeah, 2 dogs.
2 dogs?
2 dogs.
Wow, 4 kids, 2 dogs and a wife.
And a lovely wife.
Wow.
Yeah.
And a big house probably where all those have to fit in.
It has to fit, right?
Yeah, right. That's and directly at the ocean, you said, right? Directly
at the sea? No. It's 4 kilometers out from the ocean, but it's...
but you can run there. You're a really good runner, right?
I try to, yeah.
You're doing marathons?
Also.
Okay. Yeah. How fast you run there?
I actually broke my personal record. I'm not that spectacular on the marathon because I like shorter distances or very long distances more. But on the marathon, I did 3 months ago, 3 hours 20.
Wow. That's not bad at all.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
But
I have many friends that go much faster, so I'm quite humble about it.
Okay, then you do have the wrong friends in that category.
I do agree. I do agree.
And you said long distances. I think for me, a marathon is pretty long, but you go even longer.
I had an episode 2 to 3 years ago where I had herniated discs. And I had a choice of, my doctor gave me a choice, stop running or continue, but continue slower and maybe longer. I took that advice and started ultra running. And both in the mountains, so I do that typically in Chamonix, but also on the beach. So we have a pilgrimage with a few friends twice a year, once in the summer, one in the winter, where we run from Hoek van Holland, so south of the Netherlands, over the beach to IJmuiden, through the night. That's a 70-kilometer race.
A 70-kilometer race?
Yeah.
On the beach?
On the beach.
Wow.
Yeah. It's nice.
Yeah,
it's a bit tiring, but it's nice.
It's a bit tiring, right? Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So 2 dogs, 4 kids, and an ultra runner. That's
when I get
crazy.
the chance.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. When you have the time, I can imagine you're traveling a lot. really interesting, actually, the ultra running. So when we look at DeepHealth, it says a company by RadNet, and a lot of people in Europe, they don't know what RadNet is actually. So RadNet, tells a little bit about it. I mean, the numbers are outstanding. I think you have more than 420 locations in the US. It's the biggest radiology in
It's the
in
largest
US.
provider, radiology provider. Indeed, over 425 imaging centers, 10 million studies per year, over 1,000 radiologists as part of the group. We do both routine imaging, so mammography, X-ray and ultrasound, as specialty imaging such as PET, CT, and MR. And so it's a very established group for multiple decades already in the US.
It's publicly listed. It's in the NASDAQ.
It's NASDAQ listed. That's correct.
Yeah.
And they've invested already over a decade ago into technology. So they decided very early on that they wanted their RIS and their PACS in-house. So that's the eRad platform. And then somewhere in 2019, 2020, they started to also acquire AI companies. And that started with mammography, the DeepHealth company.
Because mammography in the US, you do 5% of the mammographies in the US. You do like almost 2 million or more than 2 million in the US alone, right?
Correct. Yeah.
2 million MRI scans per year in the US.
You know your numbers.
Well, I had the 6 hours train ride, so I had to prep a little bit, right? But the numbers are outstanding. I mean, this is what we can see there. RadNet numbers is crazy what a dimension that is actually, and how many doctors work there. I mean, more than 1,000 employees there. You have overall, I think, more than 10,000 working for RadNet in the US, right?
All staff.
All staff, yeah. And DeepHealth is all over the world as well. You basically could say the sun never sets in the DeepHealth empire. That would be true.
In a way, that's true, because we have over 600 employees, US, Europe, and India, and then a few other countries. For instance, Australia. It's become quite a global company by now.
Oh yeah, I think you can wipe out the quiet and say it's a global company. So when we look at RadNet, to just get the point, I mean, in Germany, do have big radiology chains such as Evidia, LifeLink, Radix, like big corporate companies with a private equity investor like Equity, for example, or Partners Group, and they're really big for Germany. I mean, Evidia is the biggest one with 350 radiologists, right? And RadNet is 3 to 4 times the size actually of Evidia. So just to imagine this monster actually, in positive way monster, and Dr. Berger, I think, founded it. So
correct.
Take us a little bit into the story of RadNet. How did it become this player actually, and why is it so successful in the US?
Yeah, so I think it's one of those stories where it was founded by a visionary, Dr. Berger. He has, from the ground up, built a company practice by practice, partially organically growing, partially doing acquisitions.
Okay.
And so...
so he bought more and more other radiologists to it, okay.
Yeah, imaging centers. And that's been sometimes large acquisitions, so multiple centers in one go, sometimes smaller tuck-in acquisitions. And that has culminated over over 3 decades into the company that it is today. What I find most remarkable about RadNet and the philosophy and the culture is it's doing business in the right way, and then it's always good for medicine, meaning the patient is at the center, and it has a high ethical and cultural component in terms of how the management team and the leaders do their business.
Basically, money will follow good medicine. This is basically what you're saying,
right?
That's
exactly right. Secondly, the companies just run very well. So
market cap is almost 5 billion. This is the number, right?
Correct. And part of that valuation is also driven by the fact that there's this technology aspect to it. We'll touch upon that later.
Yeah.
But my first exposure to RadNet, when I first got to meet them, I realized they just know their business incredibly well. And then thirdly is they've really pioneered some really exciting programs. And so they're a leader, as you mentioned, in mammography screening, which obviously has huge impact on stage shifting disease, in this case for breast cancer. But they've also pioneered in programs like EBCD, Enhanced Breast Cancer Detection Program, where they deploy AI in a very specific way to make sure that more cancers are being found.
I think the increase is more than 20%,
21%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very nicely published in a recent Nature Health article.
I saw it, yeah.
And these are the kind of at-scale programs that you don't often see. And sometimes people, and that frustrates me, that in outpatient imaging, the academics will say, well, there's not a whole lot of scientific content there. Well, boy, have a look at the pedigree that works at RadNet and the type of journals that we publish. And the amazing work that this team does.
I mean, nowadays you can just basically use Gemini and ask it, and then the results will turn out, right? It's quite easy to actually do research.
Here's another example of the role that AI can play these days.
We installed Cloud this week, or this month actually. It's crazy, but we'll jump to AI a little later. Which is interesting is how the RadNet company grew actually, because in Germany, we see private equities coming in, buying a lot of different imaging centers and combining them and trying to get them all straight, right? I do have the feeling RadNet grew a little bit differently and is really centralized, right? The headquarters in Somerville, Massachusetts.
It's actually a very important point.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, I get asked also quite a bit because of my private equity background on advice on the industry, what's happening. RadNet tries to have an uniform as possible infrastructure and processes and workflow across all the imaging centers that they organically or inorganically grow. And there's
for obvious reasons.
Yeah, for obvious reason, because that standardization actually allows the operating model to be incredibly efficient and effective. And also when you acquire new companies, you immediately expose them to those best-in-class processes and capabilities. And so that standardization is very, very critical. They actually we have a word for that internally. We call that RadNetizing, which is kind of, is partially a joke, but partially there's a truth in that. And so when I look at the industry and I see these private equity-backed roll-ups happening, I think, on the one hand, I've been part of private equity, so I will not say that that's a negative thing, but I would always look very carefully, is the integration happening properly and is the IT infrastructure common? And do you roll out processes, systems and procedures that these companies can sustainably grow going forward? And that's the opportunity that's there for these kind of roll-ups.
So you RadNetize all those imaging centers and the radiologists. I mean, it's a real process actually to integrate all those people as well when you buy something new, right? And as I said, or as you said, 425 centers all over the US. I think we get a little bit of sense what power is behind it, and you are still growing in the US. Like, I think you're still buying new centers if it's possible, right? And you're still looking for good radiologists there and technicians, right? So.
Yeah, that remains a core focus of RadNet overall, obviously. Yeah.
So, and then what happened then is that, your core business, RadNet, is radiology, is working with patients together. And probably someone really smart thought, okay, why don't we just found a new company called DeepHealth with AI, but we'll come to it. It's not just AI, it's imaging as well. It's operations as well. So I think you're talking about DeepHealth OS, right? A whole system where the radiology chains can work with it, where the imaging centers can not just take one solution you do have, but just the whole system and just employ it. So, and roll it out. So how did this idea came into being? Whose idea was it actually to start DeepHealth? Because it's like, on some level so obvious to do, because you do have a lot of data, you do know the processes, like you have probably everything in your hand to do so, but no one else before did it, right? So whose idea was it to do DeepHealth?
I think credits where credit is due. Dr. Burr is the visionary here. So a few decades ago, he already invested in RIS and PACS, and he realized that's something he wants to have in-house so that he can tune it to RadNetize the company further, so to say.
Because he was not happy with the solutions they were on the market?
So he's on the one hand, he said, look, I can go for an enterprise solution, but boy, that's quite expensive for the skill that RadNet is at. And I can go for a smaller solution, but that's maybe a little bit risky. Yeah. So he was caught a little bit in the middle in the growth phase that he was in, and therefore decided, this is core technology for business operations. I need to own that. I need to tweak it in a way that it makes more sense to the business operations that we have today. And there's a large market outside of RadNet, outpatient imaging market, where we can also sell these type of products. And eRad was then also continued to be sold externally outside of RadNet as well. And so I think, like I said, credit where credit's due, because it's in Dr. Berger's DNA to continuously think about what's the next wave of what technology can do to my business, whether it is on the equipment side, or on the IT side, or on the AI side. And he realized that when people were talking about the hype of AI, let's say 2019, 2020, 2021, we didn't quite know what we could do with it. He said...
Early stage, it was really early stage, yeah.
Exactly. His point of view was something will come out of it. And I don't want to be the passenger on this train and get disrupted by this new technology. I rather... own it and start learning how we can deploy this in our workflow.
Act rather to react, right?
Like exactly right. And that's why he started with mammography, because to you, the numbers that you quoted, obviously a large part of our business is in the mammography domain. We want to provide more access to women for this type of care. At the same time, to scale that is costly. So how can we use technology, in this case AI, to make it faster, better, more productive, better experience also for women,
and monetize it as well,
and ultimately make economic value out of it, because that's that's we
how
are in a business.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a shame. Like, it's a good product. Why shouldn't you get money for that as well? Yeah. I mean, it's so obvious. Also, you were talking about mammography. So much data is coming in, and I mean, this is how AI works, right? You gather a lot of data, quality data, and you do have it with RadNet, and then it learns and it provides a doctor with it, right? This is like basically how AI works. Like, so many people come and they do not really know how AI works, but you need ground truth, right? To really train the AI, and with RadNet, you basically have the ground truth there. Like, you're like a chef with their own farm, basically, right?
I think that's one way to look at it, but there are a couple of layers that I would like to go into. So there's the obvious layer of access to data. And by the way, we talked about RadNetize, right? So this is quite structured, similar data across, yet from different populations. So it's diverse in terms of type of population.
And you got lucky there with the US. You got a real melting pot. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Exactly right. And but at the same time, a CT scan in a certain facilities is a very similar protocol as a CT scan somewhere else, and therefore it's quite comparable in the way the images are captured. So that helps us a lot. There's much more value than that, though. So because we're so closely working with operational and clinical professionals, we understand their problems now much better.
Yeah, you get
so all kinds of ideas, all kinds of ideas come up day to day in terms of new solutions with agentic AI or clinical AI that we can solve, or even with normal software or informatics solutions. The other thing is, when we have a prototype, we can deploy very fast and see what's wrong with it. And I explicitly use the phrase "what's wrong with it," because we've noticed that any externally commercial offering in the AI space, if we deploy it at RadNet, it needs tweaking. Now, if it's not ours, it's hard to tweak.
Yeah.
If it's ours, meaning DeepHealth, we can actually jointly tweak it to a much better product. And so the example of last year was we acquired C-Mode, which is in the ultrasound domain. Initially for thyroid AI, but we were going to extend that.
You're
to
really
breast.
big there as well, thyroid.
We've rolled that out in record time at over 240 sites.
Wow.
But in that process, we also really tuned that algorithm, the way it was delivered, how the auto reporting was done. And so it accelerated that product massively, also for external commercialization. So there's this prototyping and feedback loop, which is quite frankly invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, this is a feedback loop everyone would dream of, every startup would dream of. And I mean, DeepHealth is actually a startup at some point. but also already big company, right? So let's look a little bit closer to DeepHealth, because in my opinion, it's an AI company. There's never been an AI company like that, probably, because you don't define yourself as a just AI company, but as I said earlier, as an OS, as a whole system for imaging sensors, right? And also hospitals, I'm pretty sure that will come as well. So on one layer, I think it's really, correct me if I'm wrong there, but for our listeners, it's really important to understand that you basically have 3 layers there, right? You have the AI part, you have the imaging part with the PACS and remote scan. We can talk a little bit about that as well. And then you do have the organization, the part where
we call it operations suite, or traditionally RIS.
Where the patients actually make their appointment directly with you. I read that you improved the rate of non-shows extremely. The patient satisfaction is really, really going up there. I think more than 50% of the patients at your centers in the US register themselves, right?
So you know your numbers. Exactly right. Exactly right. And look, this really comes from a philosophy of our mission. So we sort of want to boil it down to 2 things. We want to stage shift disease, so catch disease earlier, so it's more treatable and it's a lower burden for healthcare systems. And we want
prevention.
Correct. Yeah. And we want to solve as much as possible for the workforce burden that there is already today, and it's only going to widen. So drive productivity in the workflow. And instead of finding a sub-element in the radiology workflow or point solution, we've taken the perspective of let's understand the entire patient journey from patient engagement. So this is your point around no-show and avoiding no-shows. Exactly. To scheduling. So that's more center operations. To image acquisition, which is where TechLive comes in, the remote acquisition capability. To image interpretation, to referral management, to the billing and revenue cycle. And if you don't take that entire perspective, you don't know if the solution that you're putting, for instance, in the image acquisition domain will have a negative or positive knock-on effect somewhere later in that journey. So that's sort of the holistic point of view. Then you're
saying that's so easy, but this is really outstanding that one company is working on all those 3 layers. Like you're saying, it is like, it's Monday, I'm going to work. But it's way more than you're just like.
And I'm also being a little bit presumptuous because we still need a lot of work to get to completely live up to that mission. Let's also be frank about that. But that's the journey we're on. And to your point, if you then think about there are 3 key platforms that you need for that, which is what we call the operations suite, traditionally known as RIS, and that you can accelerate with agentic AI tools, so automation tools, so to say. Now, patient engagement could be one, but it could also be, for instance, dynamic scheduling in center operations. So there's a business line orchestrated around that. The second is what we call enterprise imaging. That's traditionally known as PACS. We now have a cloud-first or cloud-native approach to PACS delivering the PACS, and that's called our diagnostic suite.
Is it already available in Europe, though?
We're rolling it out in RadNet's. We've got a few clients now also externally in the US. Okay. And this year we're going to go to Europe.
So Siemens, Sectra, they should be a little bit afraid because you guys are coming with the whole new solution there.
They should be, yeah. Because, but in a way, having the opportunity, having been part of Philips and now having had the opportunity to a clean sheet redesign of how you deliver and design these solutions in the right way is quite unique. Yeah. So that's a bit of a privilege. So that's platform 2. The third platform we call population health, because we're quite focused on this point around state shifting disease. But a simpler term is maybe clinical AI. And what we're doing there is seamlessly integrating AI solutions in the radiology workflow. Yeah. To put that in a very simple way, which is not really fair, but just to speak to the imagination, you have point solutions today that next to a viewer will say something is wrong here, but create complexity for the reader because that's distracting and it's not integrating. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you will tell me, Kees, the world has moved on for there. It's a bit better than that, but you understand the gist.
Yeah.
Here it is fully integrated into the workflow of the PACS, and it's whether it's on the viewer or whether it's in the worklist prioritization or whether how it finds itself ultimately to a report.
Maybe to simplify it a little bit more for listeners who might not be that involved in radiology, but correct me if I'm wrong with my what I'm saying now is, I sometimes imagine it like buying a car, right? And you're buying a car and it has no features at all, right? It's like it used to be. And then I'm coming and saying, hey, I have the best GPS system, and just buy it, and you just plug it in there, and you put in the car, and then you can drive wherever you want to. And suddenly the car, like for example Mercedes, saying, hey, we have a GPS by our own, right? Like you don't have to go to Florian and buy the GPS anymore. It's in our system already integrated. And obviously all these GPS companies, they went bankrupt. So this is sometimes how
it's a great simplification. And to give you an example why this warm integration and seamless integration is so important. So for instance, let's say you plan your trip on your GPS. You put the separate console on there.
On the screen, yeah.
You don't look at your fuel tank.
Yeah.
Nobody will say, well, actually for your trip, you need to fuel somewhere. Or for electric cars, it's even more important, planning your trip for the different place where you need to stop.
I'm sure you have a Tesla. You are living in the Netherlands, probably.
I have an electric car, not a Tesla. But so I know how this is. So now you've got a warm integration. And so what happens is that immediately before you start your trip, it will tell you, hold on, you might not make it. You need to stop here, and here. And you can plan your trip better. Oh, shoot, that's going to take me in half an hour longer. I need to leave earlier.
Yeah.
This is what I mean by warm
integration. And it plops up on your iPhone. Yeah.
Correct. And so that's why to drive productivity in the workflow in a meaningful way, you need this deeper seamless integration, you need this warm integration.
So basically what you're saying is, if you do have AI solution, that's great, but you have to integrate it into your workflow. Otherwise you won't just not use it, right?
You will capture some you will either not use it, or you'll capture only part of the benefit, but not the full potential. And
this is why I think it's so important to, before we speak about structures with DeepHealth and what you guys are doing now in Europe, to understand the full picture, what your mission and your vision is actually, that you are not just focusing on AI tools. I think you have 26 FDA accepted and 22 CE, right? Yeah. So you got a bunch there. You got a real bunch. Is there a company with more?
Well, we think we're the industry leader there, in radiology. Yeah. So there's more if you sort of expand the aperture to other applications, etc. The reason why we're so clear about stating that we've got the widest portfolio with 26 FDA clearances and 22 CE marks, covering 75 findings, is this whole point around you need to cover as many as possible findings so that you can automate reporting. Yeah. That's really where we see the industry heading, and that's where the biggest bang of the buck is. So yes, AI can help you visualize, detect cancer, improve cancer detection rates. That we've proven that, and we're focused on that. We'll continue to innovate there and continue to push boundaries. But if you think about workforce productivity, then once you've got those findings, still a lot of work needs to happen to ultimately get to a signed-off report. We want to automate those steps. And to do that, you need as many as possible findings in the different clinical domains. So that's why we're pushing for those findings so hard.
You're really buying a lot. You bought two Dutch companies. Glima, we'll talk about that a little bit. So there, I think we can see the whole picture there. I mean, it was founded DeepHealth 2023.
In a way, it was even in 2020 with the original acquisition of DeepHealth. But you're right. Yeah. Before I joined in 23, it was officially launched. Put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. And now you're seeing yourself as a European company actually. DeepHealth is
global, but we've got European presence, and obviously it helps if the CEO of the company is Dutch and in Europe. So
Yeah, we are sitting here right now in the new headquarters, or
it's a secret.
It's a
secret. It's going to be opened in a couple of days. But you're right. You're privileged.
I mean, it's really nice. You're also in Rotterdam, Australia. We said it already. I think you're more than 50 countries. Yeah. Is that true? Yeah. Yeah. More than 500 guys already working for you. So. Great numbers. It's not really a startup anymore. Maybe at some point it is, but
it's not. No, I don't. When I joined in October 2024, I saw it as a skill up.
Yeah.
There's definitely a startup mentality, and I want to nurture that, keep that. But by now, we're becoming an at-scale company, whether that's in the technology domain or commercial domain or marketing domain. It's a skill. And
it's actually working a little bit like with RadNet. You're at some point growing yourself. At the other hand, you're buying new companies like Aidence or Gleamer. So how does it work? Before we speak about Gleamer a little bit, you got to integrate all those. You got to RadNetize or dehypnotize. I don't know how to say that, but you got to like do the same thing actually you did with all the imaging centers in the US. You got to do now with all those companies.
Yes and no. It's actually a very interesting question, and we talk often about this internally in DeepHealth. So with RadNet, you want to make sure you have a uniform approach. To a degree, we do that in DeepHealth as well. So, for instance, we're making sure that engineering practices are common, and we leverage common capabilities, whether it's in the R&D domain or marketing domain. But at the same time, we also want to nurture what really works with these acquisitions. And so, if you take the Gleamer example, they've done something phenomenal. They've grown in the course of 4 to 5 years. They've almost doubled the company every year over the course of 4 to 5 years. It's a team that is highly inspired by what they do. And so what you need to be careful with these kind of acquisitions, and I think we're pretty good in that, is nurture what's coming in as well. So be also on the receiving end of learning at DeepHealth from these companies. And so I wouldn't.
So it's a give and take.
It's a give and take, much more so than the approach that I described, maybe with RadNet and when they acquire imaging centers, because we're actually excited about the unique capabilities that we bring on board with these new companies, if that makes sense. Yeah,
it's like you're not the schoolmaster there. You're like, okay, good. We are both eye to eye. We're on the same level, and you learn something from us, and we learn something from you guys, right?
Yeah, and believe it or not, but technology companies these days are also very non-traditionally set up, meaning we talk about squads, where we have different functionalities coming together. We don't talk necessarily about reporting lines. There are reporting lines, but that's maybe a little bit secondary. It's much more about huddles and how do you make sure on specific programs and deliverables we have the right team members on, and that forms a unit for quite a while. And so it's rather non-traditional in that way, which is needed because the pace of innovation is incredibly high. And so you need to have these agile teams. That's a fancy name that typically is used. That really can work in the best possible way with each other. And that's typically not how corporates were run. It's actually quite different.
How I don't know if you know that, but what's your average age at DeepHealth?
I think actually I'm not supposed to really talk about that, but I can tell you it's a lot younger than I am. Maybe that's.
But I'm pretty sure you outrun them on the beach. On the beach, at least.
There are a few good runners. So you know what the fun thing is about DeepHealth? It's a very diverse group. They're young indeed, so it's. There are obviously people just coming out of university. There are people sort of midway in their careers, but the average age is, and I think that's very nice, is young. It's very diverse in all kinds of ways, and everybody's quite competitive. And competitive, that also means that people typically like to do athletic things. Yeah. And so there are a few runners there. I wouldn't dare to say that I'm the fastest.
Like we did safari 2.5 years ago, and I said to my wife, we don't have to be the fastest, not the slowest. Just not the slow. That's the best thing, right? Yeah. I mean, the lion catches the slowest one, right?
Exactly right.
But we got lucky. No one was eating there. Back to DeepHealth a little bit. This integration part is really interesting because, I mean, when you run a company and you just get one new employer, everyone was, okay, we have to do onboarding, all this stuff. To get the scale of Gleamer and the DeepHealth acquisition, right? And this is just an example of all the other acquisitions before that. You have now together more than 700 customers, I think.
So 2,700. So Gleamer brought 700 customer. The exact metric is customer contracts, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But we have now close to 3,000, so over 2,700 customers.
I mean, that's enormous. Like, is a crazy number. Gleamer was still is a French company. I think the CEO agreed to stay.
Christian,
Christian.
He and I work side by side. He's a fantastic guy.
And Gleamer is located in Paris. Yeah. So a French company bought by a US/Dutch company or European company or worldwide company whatsoever. Gleamer made just to get the deal. Really, I mean, the numbers are public, right? Gleamer had a annual recurring revenue of like, let's say 25 million probably. That's not public, but this is what's estimated. And you bought it for 230 million euros in cash. So $270 it was. Right? It was a pure cash deal. For everyone who doesn't know what this exactly means, is you really paid in cash and not with shares, which is, let's say, not the norm, which is pretty unique, I'd say, if you agree. So you had to be really sure with Gleamer actually that this is a good deal, because that's a big suitcase of cash actually.
Yeah, it shows how excited we are about the joint potential. And then maybe to give you a few public statements that we made so that people can dimensionalize this. We said that by the end of this year, Gleamer will have 30 million recurring revenue. Indeed, we bought it for 230 million. There's one milestone, a growth milestone in there, but there's a condition to that. Then, if you do the math, you typically see high growth recurring revenue companies with valuation multiples of around 15 times, 10 to 15 times. And so if you think about the 30 million recurring revenue, multiply that by the lower end of that range, 10, that's 300. And so in a way, I feel that we've got a pretty decent price. Yeah. Now, the second point maybe to make is there's a lot of strategic value here. And I'm going to try to unpack it a little bit. Well, first and foremost, a wide portfolio. So Gleamer by now is not just an X-ray, but they've also diversified in MR and CT and other applications that are highly additive and complementary to our offering. So that's the reason why we can now say we have the widest portfolio, and I explained the importance of that as it relates to findings coverage.
I think X-ray you didn't have before anyway, right?
We didn't, and we want to be, especially with an eye on RadNet, we want to be the leaders in routine imaging, so mammography, ultrasound, and X-ray. Yeah. And so that's the second key point is we see very, very significant potential of rolling out the X-ray solution and other solutions of Gleamer in the RadNet environment. And more importantly, we see the roadmap towards automated and draft reporting. They were quite heavily invested in that direction as well. In fact, they already have a few customers in Europe on their draft reporting solution. And so that made a ton of strategic sense. And then last but not least, we are focused on commercial external growth, and we're investing in our own commercial team. Gleamer has a world-class commercial team.
I told you the ESR, I think.
Yeah, this very special team, and what they've done and what their philosophies around customer engagement and creating value together with customers and how they do customer deployment is really outstanding. It's a team of close to 40 individuals, mostly outside of the US, but also a few individuals with great impact in the US. And we saw that as a great addition to our strategy.
And really diverse team as well. Like is partly German, obviously as well, French, and so mainly three reasons why you bought it. I get it, especially the X-ray part. Maybe for the listeners, I think Gleamer really got famous for the detection of broken bones, right?
Correct.
This was fractured. Like this was really it, that they were better than a lot of doctors, and that especially younger doctors always watch a Gleamer and go, okay, good, is this bone broken or not? I don't know, and watch Gleamer there, and they really improved there and had a lot of new solutions, as you said as well. Chest, I think, as well, lung, right? Lung,
yeah. And for instance, brain
They
did a few acquisitions last year that further widened their portfolio.
But I think the solutions, okay, I get this part, but I think what you said, your last point, the commercial team, this is really interesting because in medicine it's really hard to do sales, like commercial team, you mentioned it. I mean, I told you at the ESA, I think with this deal, you have one of the best commercial teams or sales teams. You bought one of the best teams there with Julia de Jong in Germany.
For instance, yeah.
Outstandingly how she does it is crazy. So in my opinion, this was really also a big factor to have a foot in the German market. Probably this is how I viewed the deal actually, that you already have customers now in Germany and know a little bit the system probably more because of that, right?
I think there's truth in that, and we obviously had already customers across Europe, for instance with the iCAD acquisition, but also with our lung product, our brain product, and prostate product. So it's not that we didn't have customers, but this scaled us by an order of magnitude. And as you said, the fact that you sort of know the names by heart of the individuals, and you will have the same dynamic in, for instance, Italy or France. It means that these are recognized people, not just sales tactics, but people who are really thinking about the problems and needs of customers, and that's great.
Yeah, and who love the product, who you said are passionate probably about the products as well. So when I look at the customers, the radiologists, actually, what is different now for them? Is something changing for them? Hopefully for the better. What is it?
Yeah, I think. Look, the way I want to. What I want to believe is that you'll see radiologists having more and more tools to do their work better, with less stress, with more accuracy, and with better focus on the patients.
Okay.
And so I think I know where your question is leading to. Are you going to replace the radiologist?
Oh no, this is like you can say it, but I mean this is. Standard question, right? But
no, but that's not. But that's also not our mission. So our mission, I mentioned that earlier, is really state-shifting disease. So that's really thinking about how can you catch diseases earlier, and as well as how to drive productivity, given that there's such a massive shortage of staff, whether it's the radiologist, the technologist, you name it.
Yeah, that's
if
true.
you think about state-shifting disease, you mentioned let's call it the junior doctors who are uncertain about a fracture.
Yeah.
I would rephrase that into how can you get generalists all the way up to specialist level. And we've seen with our studies that we've published that actually that's what AI can do. And we've even seen with specialist readers who will tell me, because we have obviously access to them at RadNet, is that, you know what, Kees, in the morning, I'm a morning person, I'm super fresh, I can read this, I know I got this when I'm looking at a mammogram.
But after my lunch
or late in the afternoon, I get tired. And this is where even the specialists say, that helps me to continue to perform at my peak. And that's the role that they see. So that's my point around augmentation of tools. And I also believe that ultimately it's a way to just drive the productivity up, such that the ever-increasing volumes can be managed in a better way.
I mean, look at the NHS. You're running the whole NHS lung screening, right? And in the UK, I think it went up 73. Like the detection went up 73%. I think, right?
Yeah, so that's where maybe the term really started to resonate with me, at least on state-shifting disease. So before, so in the UK, they've got a fantastic program, the lung cancer screening program. They started that a couple of years back. They were catching cancers before that time late, meaning over 70% were late stage, awful diagnosis, awful outlook, and so on and so forth. What they've done with the lung cancer screening program, that is powered by our AI, by the way, also by our image exchange platform, is stage shift that to stage 1. So the majority of that, over 70%, is now caught at an early stage, which has massive patient impact, obviously, but also the burden on of care is also reduced accordingly. And I wish that those examples will be more embraced across different countries, because you now still have a little bit of the standoffish approach. Every country needs to figure it out for themselves and have to prove that it's working. I can tell you what we're doing for mammography in the US with RadNet's, what we're doing with the NHS in the UK for lung, it's working. And we're going to see more of that, I'm sure. And I wish it didn't take so much time.
That's a great perspective, because like you really do have the overview worldwide, basically how does things work in the US or UK, and you just can tell it's really working. And yeah, you wish it would work in Germany, for example, other European countries as well. A little bit back to my question, maybe with Gleamer and in Europe, especially France and Germany or Italy. When I'm a radiologist now and I'm a Gleamer customer, what is changing now for me? Is something changing? Is the name probably will change at some point? I mean, names change, we know that. But what else? Is it like, do I get more solutions now? Do I have to be part of the US system, or what is the deal now?
It's a great question, and we get those questions obviously from day one.
Yeah.
The first answer is nothing will change immediately, and
this is what the people want to hear as well, right?
Exactly. The solution,
people hate change. Yeah.
The solution will work with the same technology, with the same cloud provision, and so on and so forth, and that will stay that way. What will change, indeed, as you say, the opportunity is now to look around what other solutions are available, whether it's on the informatics side or on the AI side, that's a system could leverage. But we're very clear, and that's also maybe back to your point around how do you integrate Gleamer. We want to make sure that the engine of Gleamer that has worked so well stays absolutely intact, and that's a commitment that we make as of day one to all the customers.
I mean, the pain points you would inflict on all those radiologists, if you would say, okay, now it's changing everything, and I'm sorry, but probably like 1 month it's gonna be not good at all with us. They would all hate you. They would lose a lot of money. And
that's
you don't get them back.
And I fully respect that.
Yeah,
and I can guarantee you that will not happen.
So, but then what is your long-term vision, especially in Germany, in Europe, in general, in Europe probably? You have this great vision of those 3 layers actually, right? Like how you want to like get in there, and what is your plan on like rolling that out actually? Like,
yeah, the beauty is that our technology stack is entirely modular. And so sometimes people say, okay, it's great presentation of all the solutions you have, but there's no way that we're going to buy that all. I said, that's not my intent.
Yeah.
If you need a thyroid AI solution, we can integrate that into your current workflow. And we can do that in a way that it's, reasonably up to par with what we would deliver integrally across all our solutions.
So you're basically saying you can buy the whole car, but also just the GPS?
Or
the wheels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, if you want to engage with us on reporting, which obviously is now a big topic with the recent announcement from Microsoft, we have Reporting Pro. Again, that's a module that we offer. And so think of the wide portfolio that we have as all kinds of modules that are interoperable.
Oh, okay.
We have an AI orchestration layer where we can say, we'll help you orchestrate AI into your workflow, and you'll use maybe our breast solution, but a competitor's AI can be orchestrated through that engine as well. And we're okay with that.
Speaking of competitors, I could imagine that some radiologists will say, okay, but you do have a RadNet company back in the US, and DeepHealth is the parent company is RadNet, right? So maybe it's even true for the US as well. The competitors say, I'm not buying your solutions because like basically you're a competitor, and it's like a Trojan horse something, right? Like, is it really good for me to buy your solution? Like, I bet you get those questions as well. And I bet you have a good argument.
Yeah. So we actually get a few of those, but not many. And the reason for that is that there are not many is because it actually helps to say that you've proven your solutions at scale in an outpatient network. So the first reaction is, if it works at RadNet, I would love to get a hold of it.
Yeah.
I recently had a customer here in Europe, and he and I were talking about one of the AI solutions, and I was talking about remote acquisition, our Tech Live solution. And he said, I'm not that interested. And I said, well, we've deployed at RadNet, and we've seen closure hours being reduced by 42% in the MR rooms.
Okay.
And he was like, let's talk about it. And so that's typically how those conversations go. Now, there are examples where people say, we're an outpatient imaging network. RadNet is a competitor. Will they see our data? And that's where we're very clear. No, DeepHealth is a separate company. We have strict Chinese walls and so on and so forth. And then the other thing to remember is that outpatient networks have, let's say, catchment areas of patients. And so it's, yes, you're a competitor, but also not really. You'll see this from the German market as well.
That's true, yeah.
And so there's, it's an argument that's that typically can be dealt with quite easily. And certainly in Europe, I didn't have so far any concern as it relates to RadNet.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
I think we're running out a little bit of time. Is that okay? Okay, good. Looking at your management here, it's uncut, so it's all good.
It's a great conversation, Florian. So
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking your time, though. Well, when you look at moving it a little bit to Europe now, compared, we know that it's really, really stricter in Europe with all the privacy, data privacy, EU AI Act, and all that stuff. It's way, way stricter here than in the US. We know that with so many companies, right? So I guess it's way more complicated to build up like a company like DeepHealth in Europe than in the US. Would you agree on that, or?
Yeah, I'm never that critical. You will never hear me being that critical on the regulatory system, whether it's US or Europe, because it's there for a very good reason.
Yeah.
Patient safety, patient outcomes, and so on and so forth. And so the way I look at it is, if you've got great regulatory capability in your team, you can do it. You can do it.
Okay, so what you're basically saying is up to you. You don't complain. Just play by the rules and do it correctly.
We try to influence, obviously, there where we think it might be too strict or too burdensome or too duplicative.
Yeah.
But I refuse to see this as problematic to our
maybe
business.
You can give us one example where you say that's kind of stupid what's going on in Europe, and maybe we have to improve that, and it's just too much bureaucracy here.
Well, quite frankly, it's quite similar. So it might be more intense in Europe and more strict. But like I said, I would never say, let some of these specificities let them go so that we can achieve a faster pace. Look, I think where recently regulation has gone is stay very strict on the regulation around clinical findings, clinical indications, and I think that's right. But become maybe a little bit more flexible in how you allow medical devices to impact draft reporting, where there's more of a generative AI solution coming to bear. And I think that's maybe something that Europe could adopt as well.
Okay, nicely said. Looking a little bit forward, the vision, how you think radiology and medicine as well. I mean, I can imagine that DeepHealth will provide solutions for other doctors as well, not just radiologists, but also maybe dermatologists or cardiologists whatsoever. How you see the future of medicine? I mean, you really work deep down with Philips now, with DeepHealth. You really did see a lot, and I think you're quite a visionary there. How will medicine look in 10 years? You said it already, you won't replace doctors, that's for sure, or at least we think it.
Yeah.
How's your view on it? How you think AI will play a role?
I think if I have a magic wand, I'm also thinking about the next generation, my young children, what they should be exposed to. I would love a world where diagnosis is being done faster, more equitable, i.e. more access to care, and that specialists, care professionals, I should say, are tasked with the diagnoses and treatments where they really can have an impact. And so if you then make it specific to your question, I would love to believe that robotics, informatics, and AI are going to play a role in dealing with the more mundane volume of diagnosis and treatment, while you keep the specialist very, very focused on the true complexities of more complex diagnosis or more complex treatments. So for instance, 80% of the X-ray volume, don't quote me on the 80%, but the large part of the X-ray volume, there's nothing to see. It's a normal. Yeah. Why are we looking at that?
That's true.
Now, controversial point, because you would say, well, if AI has it wrong, it might not be a normal. But can we get to a world where we have enough conviction that automation
with breast is almost there yet? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. That's and then all of a sudden, large part of the volume is no longer allocated to the care professional. He or she can spend much more time with the patient and on complicated cases. And so, I think it's not a too disruptive vision to be talking about. I think also the tools and the innovations are actually not that far away. It's more how do we get there, including a regulatory framework that would be comfortable with the steps that we're taking.
Okay, nicely said as well. Looking at DeepHealth a little bit, coming a little bit to the end, I think DeepHealth is developing quite nicely. You acquired a lot of companies. What is your plan? How you see DeepHealth in 5 years, maybe from now? You probably going to buy some more companies, I could imagine. I'm sure you're not going to say anything to that right now. But how you see yourself develop here? Like, what's your vision here?
We actually talked a little bit about that during our investor day a few months back.
Okay.
I think if our plan holds, which I'm quite passionate about, we will be a global company serving global customers, and to a degree we do that today. But also with a stronger presence for enterprise imaging solutions in hospital systems, so in the enterprise network.
So you're targeting hospitals?
Yeah, not just outpatient segment. Today we're targeting hospitals as well, but with our clinical AI solutions, not with our enterprise imaging.
And I mean, you're coming from the outpatients, right? Like,
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I think secondly is that we can talk about growth, and we talked about that at Investor Day. We'll continue to grow with, let's say, 30+%. So we will become quite a big company, no longer a scale up, but let's say quite a sizable company. The majority of our revenues will be recurring revenues. And so where today we come from a traditional model a couple of years back where you have a license fee up front and it's a perpetual license, and then you win the next deal and then the next deal, and you have some service fees. And we much more go these days towards recurring revenue. And that's important because then it becomes a subscription business.
Yeah.
And in a subscription business, think about your Netflix modules, etc. It's much easier to add on new value add, other solutions. And so that's a big business model change that we're driving. And then thirdly is you sort of pushed me already a little bit for it. I think we will be in new clinical domains, partially very nearby. So for instance, maybe we'll do ultrasound liver as an example. But maybe we'll find ourselves also dipping our toes in more strongly in cardiology or the broader oncology treatment pathway or
hematology, whatever. Yeah.
So that's the direction of travel.
Probably probably you're gonna aim always to be a super diagnosed AI company. Maybe you can say that.
That's right.
Really, really interesting to hear those visions, actually. We didn't talk a lot about remote scanning. You're also doing this. I think you have a small plug-in thing, right? You just have a small...
It's actually super cool. So it's called Tech Life. Yeah. And it's indeed a small piece of hardware. And what's inside the box we will never reveal because there's a lot of nice AI and solutions that go way beyond just the remote acquisition part. But indeed, it's a multimodality, so that's a first. So it works for ultrasound, it works for MR, for CT, and so on and so forth.
And it doesn't matter if it's GE, Siemens. I think you have a partnership with GE, but it really doesn't matter, right?
No, it doesn't matter. So we work on all vendors, so to say. It's a solution that's proven at scale at RadNet. We're externally commercializing it. And obviously that is massive for keeping centers open. Making, again, if you think about general specialists, making sure that there's a super tech that can coach also less experienced technologists, making sure that
from all around the world, doesn't matter where they're located, right?
Absolutely right.
So to wrap it up a little bit at the end, I think we now know that you do have 2 dogs and you do like running a lot, but which really is amazing what work you're doing with RadNet and DeepHealth now. I think after this podcast, hopefully a lot of more people will know what you guys are doing and what you guys are actually capable of. And I'm pretty sure you're here to stay in Europe. Amazing how much data you do actually have and how you use it to improve medicine at the end, right?
That's the goal.
Yeah, that's the goal. Do we miss anything? Like I would say we probably have to do an update in 1 year or so when you bought the next company or when you have some more solutions on the market. It would be really great to talk to you again in 1 year to see where you are then, because I think this is probably one of the most interesting companies in the healthcare system all around the world right now.
That's an amazing compliment, and I'll make sure that we live up to that compliment.
Yeah.
It was very comprehensive, Florian, and very enjoyable. Thank you for giving us the chance to talk about the journey that we're on.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening in. Next time, probably in German again, but I think we did a great job here. I hope we can do little subtitles here. So, Kees, thank you so much. Probably the Americans call you Kees, right?
They all kinds of permutations to my name.
Yeah. But it's Kees, so thank you so much for taking your time. Great meeting you, and good luck with all your visions. And I will watch you doing that.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Das war MedMile Uncut. Lust auf mehr? Schaut gerne auf medmile.de oder unseren Social-Media-Kanälen vorbei.